Hey, this is Mike.
Hey, this is Kaz, and you are listening to Two Broke Watch Snobs. You've made it all the way to episode 267. Hello. Hello, Mike.
76, 276.
76. There we go. Late.
We got it. Today's coming in with a special episode today. We actually have a guest on the show. We have Barry Cohen from ProTek Watches. So, Barry, why don't you say hi to the audience and introduce yourself?
Hello there, Watch Snobs audience. Happy to be on number 276 with you.
Yeah, thanks for coming. We chatted a bit before this episode as we were learning about ProTek watches, and on this show, we love talking to brand owners, discussing what it takes to run a brand, some of the headaches involved, some of the challenges, and also some of the upsides. And again, there seems to be a lot of history behind ProTek and behind you as a person in the industry. So we just thought it'd be a great idea to chat and, let the listeners know about who you are.
Well, thanks for having me. As I said, there's not that much history on the ProTek brand because it's relatively new, less than 2 years on the market, but we hope to have some history over the course of time. I guess there's a little history for me since I've been doing watches for more than 35 years at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about it. I the way we're going to build this episode, talking Tritium Loom, ProTek watches, and the future of the brand. So for folks that aren't aware, Barry's history in watchmaking in particular is very closely tied to Tritium Loom. So we're gonna nerd out on really technical pieces of Tritium. We're gonna talk about ProTek, and it should be a pretty good time, actually. We always love having super interesting guests on the show, but we should probably do a quick wrist check, Michael, you and I, and then we can allow Barry to do his wrist check as well. Because I was looking at the watch that he's wearing last night. I'm actually kind of interested to hear more about it. But Mike, do you want to honor tradition and do your wrist check real quick?
Yeah, so today I'm wearing a Sangan Instruments Professional Triple Odd Design Edition, and I could just pull it up here so the audience can see. This is what we're going to be seeing is a newer model. I have an older one. These newer ones have a revised date window and some different color options, but the one that I'm wearing now is very similar to this. It's just a fully quartz GMT diver. It's
super cool.
Get up this morning and needed something that was running, and so I picked this because I was kind of in a hurry, and it's just such a solid watch. I have it on the rubber strap, just like this.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's what I'm wearing. How about you, Kaz?
Nothing fancy. I'm wearing my Seiko SNK. The old green dial, the old field watch before they retired these old 7S26 models and started reissuing with the 4R movement variations, everything like that. So again, just like you, I was just keeping it simple today, honestly.
And you're keeping it on that ostrich strap for good.
Yeah, I'm never taking it off the strap.
Yeah,
that's just for me. I like the green with the strap. I like the actual strap itself. So that is this watch's like happy spot right now. I had on a NATO forever. The NATO looked like total dog shit. It looked like a seatbelt out of an old car. It was all like gross and sweaty and everything like that. But that's the NATO you gave me, Mike. Actually,
yeah, I'm sure that NATO is time to retire that NATO. It's been a while.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So that's what I'm wearing now. But happy to pass it over to Barry. Barry, tell everyone at home what you're wearing.
Well, today I'm wearing a ProTek Field Watch, model 3005, with the hunter green dial, dark brown strap, and the T100 tritium tubes that are the biggest tritium tubes you can get for really a fantastic light show. That, in fact, on this watch, when we created it, we intentionally left the date out. I just didn't want to interrupt the beauty of those oversized tritium tubes glowing in the dark. So we just left the date out of this model.
Mike, if you scroll down, there is a loom shot. If folks at home, there it is.
Oh, look at that. It's multicolored.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we got 369 are green, hour minute hand are green, 12 o'clock is orange, so you can always tell top of dial, and all the rest are what's called ice blue. Now, the different glow colors have different strengths. Green is going to be the brightest, and if we say that green represents, say, 100 on a scale, then the ice blue is only 40. And so I really prefer to not use the ice blue on the smaller tritium tubes, but on the larger tritium tubes, there's enough of an index there and enough tritium there that it glows plenty well, even though it's not as bright as the green. And it makes for a very pretty night shot design.
That's really cool. Is there the level of specificity where you can dial it in? So let's say I wanted my blue tube to be as bright as the green one. Is there a way you could do that with maybe,
No,
or would they need to be totally different size tubes?
nope. It's there's 9 different colors available in the tritium loom, and they go from again, using green as 100 on a scale. The lowest is down around 15 for the dark blue or the dark red. The red was often called a sniper tritium tube because honestly, you can barely see it unless you're in complete darkness and you have been laying in wait for a while and your eyes are fully dark adapted. That's when you can see it. That's why they call it a sniper.
That's funny.
Sniper color. In fact, years ago, I made one for Cabela's, and we got a lot of returns on it because people thought it wasn't glowing. It was glowing. They just weren't used to it.
Just too dark.
No.
That's
So
really funny.
nowadays we like to use the brightest. If our purpose is to have the best loom available in a watch and to provide the enabling technology of being able to see time at a glance, no matter what the light level, including complete darkness, then it seems to make a lot of sense to use the bright green more so than other colors.
Sure. It's something interesting, especially with ProTek or with really any watch that you worked on. If the leading factor is going to be, tritium, trying to get as bright as possible, with an idea of like of a field watch, which is actually really interesting in regards to some of the designs that people might know, from you. The field watch is actually a really interesting design medium. So when you're doing something like this, is the idea of keeping the loom front and center the deciding factor of how you design it, or do you have this idea of staying true to a field watch design first and then trying to apply your take on the loom, or am I overcomplicating it?
Perhaps just a tad. In the end, we're a function brand. And that's really what I've done my whole career. As you guys know, I was the founder and owner of Luminox Watch for 27 years and was able to build a nice business there. In fact, it became a global business. But I left that in 16. But that also was a function first brand because it's about this loom. It's bringing that loom to the consumer audience, really. And that's, I guess, if there's a feather in my cap, that's what my first partner, Richard Timbo, and I did with the Luminox brand by bringing it that loom technology, that enabling technology to the consumer arena. That technology had been around. Lots of military products like lensatic compasses, of course, night sights on guns. There were even a couple of watches that had it, but they were supplying military. And our reasoning was, if this is really enabling and helpful, why don't we bring it to the consumer arena and let customers enjoy this benefit? And it seems to have worked out. Now, after we did that, we kind of became the neon sign for the technology. And I think at one point there were over 100 different companies or entities that went and then tried to do this as well. That figure is way, way, way down from that. There's a couple dozen, but I would tell you in my opinion, there's about 6 or 7 brands of any consequence that use this tritium self-powered illumination. And I think we're the best one.
Of course. Well, the 6 or 7 that use it to its most appropriate extent, who who use it correctly, is what you're saying.
Use it through the brand. I mean, if you look at, okay, so just talking loom, if many watches have no loom, And then if they have loom, they're using a photoluminescence, which means it needs light energy to
Right.
come and hit the painted surface, which could be the hands or the indices or the numbers. And that's usually superluminova today. And that activates or charges the paint, and it gives back a glow for a certain period of time. Now, the thicker the tritium paint is applied, the more material there to absorb more light energy and therefore give back a more durable glow.
Right.
But again, and there's a sea of brands, like thousands of brands that have that. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely fine if that's what you want. We make watches with superluminova in our company. Our vintage Santo brand, our Hawaiian Lifeguard official watches have it. Our Icons watches with Frank Stephenson and Roland Sands, they have it. So there's nothing wrong with that loom. But ProTek uses what I would tell you is the ultimate loom system you can get in a watch, and there's a few other brands that have it.
Because the idea with the ultimate loom system is kind of what you were talking about before, with being a function first brand. If I need to rely on the legibility of my watch in the dark, I can't have just hoped it absorbed enough light before the lights went out.
And that depends on the type of watch as well, which I didn't fully answer the prior question. Sorry about that.
No, you're good. It's your show.
Function versus fashion, I guess we'd say, or style. I mean, yes, every watch we make is going to have this superior loom function, but when we begin to conceive a series, it's the look of the series first. What is that dive watch going to be? What is that field watch going to be? And then from there, once we flesh out that design and get it to the point where we're ready to go to production, then the other aspect of the function takes over, because the loom is our primary USP and our main function.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as designs go, and by the way, we were talking about loom for a second there. Wars tend to beget technologies, and prior to World War I, men didn't really wear wristwatches. They wore pocket watches. But the guys that were in the field needed their hands available for their gear, and so the idea of strapping a watch, a field watch, they were in the field, strapped to their wrist is where wristwatches for men really began. And so the field watch is essentially the venerable military watch of all time. Basic, simple, easy to read, and we certainly wanted to have a military watch in our brand. That's why we have this field series that you just showed.
That's great. I'm glad you talked a little bit about your history in regards to bringing tritium as like a technology into kind of commercial watchmaking, because I did want to make the announcement that if you have a tritium watch on your wrist right now, you should probably thank Barry, because before you and the original venture, no one was doing it for non-military purposes. You were one of the first folks that said, hey, this is something we can do on a commercial scale for watches in regards to using tritium to put on people's wrists.
I guess there's some truth in that for sure. And I'm sure my ex-partner and I were both very proud of that, because we created a category for all intents and purposes.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Absolutely.
So, I guess even before Luminox, before ProTek, how do you, Barry, how did you get into watches in general, or this kind of interest?
Well, I had been, I certainly didn't study to be a salesperson. It just kind of happened. So my school studies didn't have much to do with what I ended up doing. But I was working for a large jewelry firm called Monet Jewelers, which was a supplier of costume jewelry to department stores. And the number one, it was almost 50% of the department stores business. So that kind of got me into the world of department stores. And when I left that company, I picked up a bunch of accessories that would I was basically an accessory salesman, from socks to sunglasses to watches to umbrellas to neckties to just jewelry, a whole array
Wow.
of accessories. And gradually it whittled down to sunglasses and watches, which were complementary because more sunglasses sold in the spring and more watches sold in the fall. So my commissions were able to even out.
Hmm.
And uh, in the world of sunglasses, I worked with some fashion design brands, but I was also the at the very beginning of Costa del Mar, and in fact, I was the first sales manager there. So my job was to put it into department stores around the country, and that's what we did. Uh, and then the watch side of that, again, spring and fall type year, rounding out the commissions. I got involved in that just right after Swatch had hit the market. Guess and Fossil had hit the market, and there was a tsunami of interest in watches in
Yeah.
department stores. And so I picked up some fashion watches, some sterling watches, and as I was going along, I had programs with a number of department stores, but I really felt I needed one of two things to be able to sustain a business ongoing. So one would have been an enormous brand name, so that even if you copied it, it's still not that name. Take hyperbole, like say Ralph Lauren or something like that. They didn't have watches at the time, but I had no connection to any big name. So I didn't know how I was going to accomplish that. So I sort of started looking for technologies and thought that if I could find a technology to put into the category I was already working, I'd have the ability to sustain a business. And when I
Interesting.
found this loom technology, um, I called up a friend of mine on the East Coast who became my launching partner. And we went to Switzerland and sat down with the company that does the illumination, with their CEO, spent 4 days with him. And then he gave us the rights to the technology, and we brought it out to the market. And that's the advent or the beginning of Luminox.
Wow. That's incredible. It's so interesting. So the idea was you knew the differentiating factor you needed to really hunt down was some kind of technology, and that's actually really cool. Did you find any sort of difficulty at the onset of getting new consumers or getting consumers to adopt this new technology, or was it, people immediately fell in love with it when they first started seeing it?
That's an interesting question. So, as with any new brand, there are hurdles that have to be jumped over. It's not
Right.
easy. And if you are in a category that's brand driven, and watches are, unlike, say, gold chain, you buy it by
Mm,
weight.
Mm.
It doesn't matter what brand it really is. I mean, there are companies that have tried to create branding for themselves, but watches are brand driven. So, it was not easy to get going. We had no marketing money really. And that's a whole separate story I could tell you about being with that CEO in Switzerland. I'll get to that in a minute if you want. If you want
of
to hear
course.
something you won't believe, but if this was the '90s, okay,
Mhm.
and in the '90s was the heyday of mail order. It
Mhm.
was rampant, and you name it: Eddie Bauer, Orvis, LL Bean, uh, Harrington, Brookstone, Sharper Image, Cabela's, Bass Pro, REI. I mean, just go down the list. It's one after another. We were selling products into all these catalogs, so now we had the chance to bring this new watch technology in a watch into these catalogs and show day, show night, and then tell the story. And that was the important part because we had no marketing money. So these catalogs became our marketing. In
Right.
fact, I would tell you that two in particular, the Sharper Image and Cabela's, were the vehicles that made Luminox take off because
Cool.
they were putting out both were putting out about 6 million catalogs a month. So we were getting 144 million catalog exposures for 4 to 5 years straight, and that's pretty much what got Luminox on the track to where it will become a known entity. Um, Coming back to the having no money thing,
Mhm.
I tell this story occasionally. They can't believe it. So we go over there. We meet with this fellow who was the CEO of the company, and every day he asked us, "How much money do you boys have?" And we said, "We have no money, but we've got heart." And we work with all the mail orders, and we'll get
Yeah.
it into the mail orders, and that'll be our marketing campaign. But we don't have any money. Every day he asked us, "You boys are as poor as church mice." We would hear, "Yes, it's true." And so on the third afternoon, he asked again, "But you boys need money." So I stood up and I pulled out my front pocket. And you know how your pockets can get lint in them sometimes?
Sure.
So I pulled it out and I just went like this with the lint and just dropped the lint and said, "That's about all we got. We have no money," as we've told you for the past couple of days.
That's so funny.
So the next day, he says, this is our last day with him. He said, "You boys need money. So here's what we're going to do." And he writes a check to me personally, to my name, for $80,000.
Wow.
This is 1989, fall of '89. And, I mean, $80,000 then was a lot more in today's world. I probably could have gone and lived in the Caribbean for 4 years on that. But
But that goes to show how much faith he had in what you were doing, what you were trying to do.
well, I guess so. A couple things. He then went on to say, "Every watch you sell for 40,000 pieces, you give me back $1, and we will have split this marketing contribution." And that's, great. And when we left, I said to my partner, "Rich, you realize this guy just put us in business and he's expecting $1. And when someone does good by you, you got to do better by them. So we're going to pay him $1.50 every time we sell one." And anyway, I was invited back to this company's grand celebration for their new factory.
Mm-hmm.
I was the only non-employee or family member of the ownership that was invited, which was quite an honor. And they asked me to speak because, we did help create this category that they sell the tubes to. And I told this story, and some of the children of that man and the grandchildren of that man were very touched by his faith in us, actually.
I imagine.
Now, so they had, of course, they're Swiss. They had gone to Rolex, Breitling, Omega, all of these, and all of those people had turned it down. Now, remember, they sell every watch they can make, so they don't need something as a point of difference.
Right.
And that was also right after 3 Mile Island, which was a nuclear scare. And so companies didn't want to have something to do with something, quote unquote, nuclear. This is a nuclear technology. Our approach was, heck, we want it. We know it's safe, and we want it. It's not like those watches I told you about World War I, when they were painting the dials of those, they were using radium.
Yeah, that's not safe.
No, that's not safe. And a lot of people in the factories died from that, and died young. Tritium, there was an evolution from radium to tritium prior to World War II, and tritium became the loom technology that was used, and that was used right up until, I think, very late 60s, when superluminova came about, and then there was an evolution of that. But anyway, so this tritium, H3, heavy hydrogen, H2 is hydrogen, is a nuclear substance, but it's so safe. You could, of course I had concerns. So I'm asking this CEO, well, how safe is it? And I mean, what would happen if I ate a watch?
Right.
So, obviously not the whole watch, but let's say the 16 tritium tubes. If I ate those tubes, am I in danger? And his answer was, you would take less radiation in your body doing that than if you ate a banana. So don't worry about it. Or if you fly cross country at 35,000 feet, you're
Right.
more radiation's going into your body doing that stuff than if you ate the tubes. And of course, no one's going to eat these tubes. So
not on purpose. We would hope not on purpose.
So I felt safe based on that. And
that's great.
and that's how it all happened. But so I don't know if I should just segue into something else, or you guys have questions, or
I have a question about one thing, and this will help us transition maybe from the Luminox days into the ProTek days.
Mhm.
So it seems maybe shortly after Luminox got up and running, at least in my mind, a lot of the success that brand saw and has seen has to do with military ties that are marketed a certain way.
Mhm.
A particular watch being the official watch of insert branch, be it the Navy or the Marines, things like that. I think a lot of people that are shopping for watches and learning about watches, they'll see something like that and take the claim and wonder how genuine it is, what goes behind
so I can answer that.
becoming the official watch. How did that play into the way that you
All
marketed
right,
and
so
you?
happy to answer that. And and of course, one of the things I will say is that in life, luck plays a role, whether it's good or bad. So, uh, I'll tell you how the Navy SEAL tie came about with my former brand. We were at an outdoor retailer show in Reno, and a research and development officer came to our booth and said, "I've been looking all over for you. If you put this into a watch for us, I'll buy some. There's not that many seals. B, I'm not even buying for that many seals. But you can go tell the world that we requested it and you supplied it to us, and so we were doing. We were speaking the truth. That's exactly what happened. Now they bought 150 watches at that point. Maybe over the course of many, many years, more than another 50 or so were purchased. But to be clear, there is no watch brand, any brand, that is the watch used officially across the entire branch of an armed service. So military people choose their own watch and get their own watch. There's no U.S. Army watch that everybody in the Army's wearing. There's no Navy watch that everybody in the Navy's wearing. So these have really become licensed programs where a uh, a given watch brand strikes a deal with a given branch of the military and develops a license program to become an official watch of that group. And that's really how it's done. Now, presumably, I don't think a group signs up, for junk. I think they
Right.
want to know that they have a decent product. Um, like in our, there's several Navy watches. It's not just my old brand Luminox. I mean, I've seen Jaeger LeCoultre at the high end. I've seen Panerai that does Navy SEAL watches. So there are several. There's not just one. There are also several U.S. Marines watches. So we are one of them. Um, I once again, I'd like to think we're the best one. And for what it's worth, while sitting with the Marines earlier this year, I made the comment that they have some that are kind of comical, like $49 cartoonish, and then they have some that go up to 1,500. And I said, so some are very good, I believe that we make one of the best ones. And the response was, "Would you like to know what we think? We think you make the best one." Okay, thank you. So that's nice to know. And this whole thing about reviews and what type of quality goes into a given watch. Um, I mean, this you guys are going to get some samples, so you will be able to review it, and we welcome you doing so. But there's all types of people that review. There's editors that are just with a fashion magazine or something like that. And, oh, it looks good, great colors, fits well, ergonomic. That doesn't necessarily mean it's a well-made watch. That starts, on the inside. And so while we've gotten incredible comments on ProTek, I'll get for how we got to ProTek. I'll get to that in a second. But since I'm on this topic,
Yeah, let's do it.
My associate Jennifer, who by the way is also a very, very talented person, really terrific at what she does for our company. She started sending me some of these emails that were coming in unsolicited. And I realized, wow, these are an asset. These people don't like our watch. They love our watch. And they're telling us they love it so much they went and bought another series. And then they bought another series. And this says to me, our challenge is to get that first one on a customer. Then they'll realize what we make, and they'll buy more of it. But coming back to reviewers, and then there's reviewers, the thing I'm particularly proud of is people who really know watches, like a Blog to Watch, which is a top watch blog out of Los Angeles, where the reviewers are certified watchmakers. They can make a watch. They have summed up our brand as the best value tritium illuminated watch on the market, and noted our build quality is outstanding. Now, from them, to me, that means a lot. Also, take a guy like Gary Gervinus, who was publisher and managing editor for International Wristwatch Magazine for a couple of decades. And he knows everything from $30 watches to $3 million watches. And certainly viewed the ascent of what I did with my prior brand, and took particular interest to see some of what we do with ProTek. And he summed us up as having raised the bar in tritium watches, outstanding build quality, and then said, I can't imagine somebody else offering a better value proposition for what you're offering. So, there's another expert, I would say, that really knows watches. My old buyer from Harrington, David Houston. This guy is a watch nerd, and he saw our watch and bought a couple right away, and said, "This is the best thing I've ever made." So, look, those reviews count, because those are people that really know. Anyway, I digress for a sec. Sorry.
No. This is actually. Oh no, Mike, you go.
I was just gonna one last question, and maybe we can get into some more ProTek and what your days look like with that brand now. When you made that initial sale of the 150 watches, I think you said in Reno, were those purchased and then sent to an exchange on base for people to buy, or just straight to the?
It was a straight purchase by this research officer for 150 guys that were SEALs.
Very interesting. Yeah, I wanted to get.
And we didn't ship it until, I think, January of '94.
Very cool.
Yeah. I it's actually really interesting kind of hearing the experience that other, watch reviewers and watch experts and watch nerds have had when they handled, one of the ProTek pieces. And one of the consistent things that came about, you're mentioning, was, tritium, build quality, value. Those three things intersecting, with value being a really important one. That was definitely something that I noticed just when I was on the website looking at the models. As really a watch designer in this space, how difficult is it to balance this need to get something as high quality as possible without having to incur a huge price tag for the users? Because depending on the situation, a lot of watch brands are comfortable building something that's super high quality, super XYZ, and then they have no problem charging thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Yeah. I think it's harder to do that and then keep it at a value-driven price. What's that sort of dynamic like? How's that been for you?
Well, it's not easy because we don't have enough margin to really to really fund all we want to do. So we have short marked the brand by design. And the reasoning for that is we want to be affordable enough that people will take the leap and try one of our watches. Once again, as I said before, if we can get one on someone's wrist, then we have a good chance of repeating sales with them. So we just came out with short margins so that we have a chance in a very competitive marketplace.
Have you experienced this idea, or is there a certain price point that you'll never ever exceed or be out of, and is that going to kind of control the margins?
Well, I don't know. I don't see myself doing Valjoux movement automatics. We have automatics now. But I don't see using movements that are going to cost $300 a movement and build $2,000 watches. I just don't. I don't think that's our niche. I think if we stay definitely sub 1,000, mostly sub 800, and even that, those are new things that are coming right now. Our whole brand is $4.95 to $5.25 for 26 of our 28 existing current SKUs. We got two models that are plated, black or gunmetal, that take it up another $25 to $5.50. And then we are launching these automatic. And by the way, all of those, I should have mentioned that, all of those watches are using Citizen's Miyota division movements, which are pretty much bulletproof. It's an extremely robust quartz movement. And as we add, I could even tell you a story there if you wish, but as we add,
Sure.
okay, as we add automatics, we have added Seiko's 24 joule movements for our automatics, which are, again, extremely robust, very dependable. It's the workhorse of most of their cool dive watches, and they do make very cool dive watches. So the story I was going to tell you is I was having dinner with a Swiss watchmaker before I launched the brand. And this lady worked for the Swatch Group and at the moment was working for Omega. And I told her my whole plan. And then I said, I saved the best for last. As a proud Swiss individual and even prouder Swiss watchmaker, I want to know what you think that I'm going to be using Citizen's quartz movements instead of Swiss quartz. And her answer was a very smart decision. Everybody knows it's the most robust quartz movement. Now, I don't know that everybody knows, but maybe in her crowd, everybody knows.
Right.
Anyway, so
Oh,
that was kind of an interesting comment, I thought.
So
nothing wrong with Swiss movements either, by the way. But our brand is an amalgam of 5 nations. So first and foremost, it's an American brand. It's Swiss design, and I'll touch on the designer in a moment. It's Swiss illumination. I already told you about that. We're using dependable Japanese movements, which I told you as well. And now we're assembling this in a clean room condition in Hong Kong, not in China. To touch on the designer, he's an old friend, my friend Eddie. I first worked with him in the early 90s. He was at a major Swiss firm that was making watches for Tag Heuer and Gucci and a lot of big brands. And he worked with us on our first Luminox watch back in early 90s. And so I have a long-standing friendship with him. It's more than just work. That's 30 plus years. And so when I decided to come back with ProTek, I reached out and said, I'm going to take one more shot at this before I'm too old and try and do it in what I believe is the right way. And I want to know if you want to join me. And his answer was, you're darn right. I'm in. Let's do this. He's pretty much retired, which is probably what I should be. But we're both doing this thing. And our relationship has always been really good. We always thought very much the same. I would give him the ideas. I can't draw. He would sketch and draw, and then we'd take it from here and get it down to what we really want.
That's awesome.
As the design, and then we do colorways from there. But to give you an idea, there's a lot of hubbub right now because Tag Heuer's new Formula One is out. I don't know if you've heard that. Okay, so that's getting a lot of press. Well, the guy who developed the original Formula One is this same guy I'm talking about, Eddie.
Oh, that's funny. And
he designed also their 2000 series, which is a very strong influence on our steel model. Can't really see it, but
here we go.
Okay, so that the 2000 series was the influence for what we came up with for our steel divers. And we had certain like design inspirations. So Hamilton was one. Longines had a field watch that we loved. Certainly Omega was one. There was a Hublot that was very angular with a lot of facets and cuts. That was one. And by the way, our carbon series, we call that design language facets because there's a lot of cuts and angles.
Right.
And it's hard to see when it's in carbon, but if you saw it in steel, you'd see all the cuts real simple. And so anyway, the interesting or ironic part is that Luminox was not part of our inspiration for what we wanted to create. It was definitely in other directions. And because I've heard some people say, well, your carbon looks like Luminox. It's another, carbon composite black case watch. And that's why people might jump to that statement.
Right.
But in reality, if you look close, you'll see we have a different design language. And again, with the cuts and the angles called facets. But also, if you look at what exists in our line today, Eddie and I wanted to go with something that's timeless, classic, and will never go out of style. So we didn't get crazy on all kinds of gizmos and extra markings, and we wanted it to be clean design. And I think we accomplished that.
Absolutely. What was the experience like just deciding to go forward and jumping into ProTek after having tried the venture with Luminox and essentially starting ProTek again? Was it like starting from scratch where it was really kind of scrappy, or did you say, okay, great, I've done this before, I can jump right into it? You know what I mean? Was it totally a different experience, or did it just kind of feel like just riding a bike?
It's a bit of a mix of both for a number of reasons. So first of all, there's a changing dynamic in retail that definitely impacts a new brand's ability to gain entree into stores. That is not as easy as it was decades ago. Decades ago, there were far more retailers. Conglomeration of retail is part of what's caused this. So there were far more retailers, and a retail buyer might say, I want my department to look different, so I'm going to bring in this. Today, you go to department stores, it's cookie cutter merchandise. It's the same stuff in every store, because a brand has to, it's the reverse situation of the old days. A brand has to caught on a little bit for the store to, quote, take the risk and bring in a new entity, a new brand. So that's different. That's a lot different. The reality is, like anybody could go do what I'm doing, but I have history doing it, obviously, and I know what I'm doing. I'd like to think I know what I'm doing. But the reality is, let's say I had not helped to create a category and I did not have my former brand. You guys might not have me on this little talking podcast.
Right.
It's, it would be just another somebody came out with a Tritium watch, and certainly there's nothing wrong with that. But I would venture to guess that the reason I'm here with you is because of my history, and then the product starts to be another discussion once we're engaged in dialogue.
Yeah, it helps being the person that normalized commercial usage of Tritium, and then with all of the Luminox history, I can see that having a successful initial venture makes the next one probably a little more straightforward, as opposed to just trying to start from scratch. Right, especially right now, there's a lot. Mike and I talk about all the time. There's a lot of noise in the watch brand world because it's really easy to start a watch brand these days. It's very difficult to differentiate yourself or give folks a sense of the pedigree behind those in the brand to catch people's attention. So that makes a ton of sense.
Well, with computers and the internet, all of a sudden anybody could jump into the watch business, because you could just Google watches available in China, see something on a shelf, buy it, import it, ship it out of your garage, and you're in the watch business.
You're a watch brand.
But does that really mean you know what you're doing? I mean, the three people that are part of our core, I mean, we have 90 years of watch experience. That's a little different than I saw something online and I bought it and now I'm selling watches.
Yeah, Kaz and I, we always make fun of the fact that, we visited Hong Kong, I think in 2018 for the Hong Kong Watch and Clock Fair. And I wonder if you've ever been, but just meeting some folks there, your email inbox for the rest of your life is going to be folks saying, "Hey,
we're still getting emailed.
Hey, we can make these cases for you. We can, drop these movements in there, you'll be good to go. Minimal investment. Let's get going. We still get solicited that way, and
I just got one
yeah.
yesterday, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah, so I did Basel for 20 years about,
Right.
Which is, is kind of a love-hate. To me, it was always a little overdone. Our booth was $650,000. That seems a little insane to me.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And it also, it was inside the building. It was always stifling. You're wearing a suit and tie.
Really?
I felt like I was in a sauna. It was horrible. So really uncomfortable. And then, and of course, I've been in about, I don't know, 7 Swiss factories. So I've seen how quality watches are made. Swatch brands, I've seen them made. Omega, Hamilton, Rado, Mito, a bunch of their brands. And then in Asia, I've probably been in about 25 factories, and you can find everything there. I mean, you can find factories that would, that you really don't want to step in. They're kind of filthy.
Sure.
But and certainly no brilliance of my own, but I stumbled on a couple of factories after working with this one, that one, this one, that one, that are every bit as high quality as what I saw at the best of Switzerland. Really what it taught me is it's not where they're made, it's how they're made.
Yeah.
And that's why we used Asian movements, because if I'm going to source all my components in Asia, what was the point of shipping it all to Switzerland to put a Swiss movement in and have Swiss human beings do it? If you can find the right facilities in Asia and do it there at a very high quality level, and I think we have. I mean, our defect rates are always down around 0.5%.
Wow.
On the topic of factories, and this is another Tritium question, correct me if I'm wrong, but is there just one factory that has that capability, or just one producer of those tubes, or are there more that could do it?
There have been a couple of producers of the tubes, but there's only one that's been able to do it well in the micro size. And that's the one in Switzerland. But remember, that's a separate factory from watchmaking.
Yeah.
So, I mean, these tubes are, I don't know if you want to hear how it's done. I can tell you that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So it starts with borosilicate glass, which is Pyrex. It's like the cooking dishes. And they're about 1/2 inch in diameter. Under heat, they're drawn and stretched until they come down to diameters of 1/3 of a millimeter to 2/3 of a millimeter for most of the Tritium tubes.
Wow.
Now, some of the ones like I'm using here, these big flat ones, are done a little differently. I'm talking now about the cylindrical tubes, although the process is the same. So then the people at the factory are wearing big magnification. It looks like Oculus, big magnification goggles, and they're looking to make sure that the inside of the vessel has been completely coated with a glue. They call it cement. We call it glue.
Right.
And then after that's done, a phosphor powder is then poured in again with the same goggles on to make sure that the entire vessel has been coated with the powder. Now, one end of that, and these tubes are now about 18 inches in length, and one end of that tube is sealed with a CO2 laser to get a nice round cupping at the end of the tube. Then those tubes are taken over to vacuum machinery, which is kind of looks like an incubator for a baby, where you have these arm things that you put your hand in, these arm things, and you are now attaching the tubes to connectors where tritium gas will be pumped into it. So again, that's H3, heavy hydrogen. And the tritium gas, and it's done in a vacuum. That's why you're in this like incubator type shape.
Right,
thing.
with the gloves. Yeah.
Right, because that's a vacuum, and by being in a vacuum, you're able to pump more tritium gas into it. Now you have this 18-inch tube, and it's sealed with a CO2 laser on both sides, and the tritium is emitting beta, and the beta is causing the phosphor to fluoresce on its own. That's how it's self-powered lume. And different phosphors will yield different glow colors. So that goes back to your question about the colors when we first started talking. And so now that's all done in one like physicist laboratory. And that tube is then goes over to the laser machine, and you got a big monitor up there, so it's blown up giant, but you can look down in and see it as well. And the tubes come through, and it's computer programmed, and they spin, and the laser cuts that nice little curved end.
Oh.
And that's how you get your sizes that go on the minute hand, the hour hand, the second hand, the hour indices, the bezel pips. It's all computer programmed to cut them in that size. Now you take 10,000 tubes that fits in a box 4-inch by 4-inch by 1-inch. And now that tube box is shipped to the assembler. And that's where they affix these tubes onto the hands, the indices, the dials, and so on. So it's a step that's outside standard watchmaking until it gets to the watchmaker, and then it's assembled in the standard manner.
So it's the.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say. So it's the powder phase where you determine the color. That's where the color is determined.
Different phosphors will yield different color glow.
Gotcha.
I have two questions. So the stage where they get packed into the box and they get sent to the actual like watch assemblers, and they're the ones that affix it to the dial. Was there, when you first started doing this, was there a certain amount of, how did they learn how to do it? Did you say, here's a box, figure it out? Or did you say, hey, here's this training program, you can do X, Y, Z? How does that work?
Well, the company that the company that makes the tritium tubes really supported me for years with the manufacture of the watches. And at that point we had, very good quality and very low defects.
Amazing.
And then we branched out and worked with, and we learned, right? We worked with 4 or 5 other resources to source our own watch while still working with that company and buying those watches. And, when you go do this testing, you learn that, this one's a bad supplier. You don't want to go there. And this one's not good either. But that one, wow, that one was excellent. So we can keep building there. And that's kind of how that happened.
So the tubes are sealed. Is there ever an instance where, what is servicing for one of those watches look like? What if something went out and maybe there was a defect and one tube wasn't as bright as the other ones? Or is that just not? I guess that might go to the 0.5% sort of failure rate that you're talking about before. Statistically, that's very unlikely to happen.
We almost never have a tube failure. It'll be something.
Okay.
It'll be something else. And if there is a tube failure, it has a 10-year warranty.
I have another question, but Mike, I don't want to cut you off if you were about to ask something.
No. I had my question.
I'm super fascinated to know your thoughts on this. So in regards to ProTek and just sort of getting the watch out there and getting it on folks' wrists, but then also talking about the shifting dynamic nature between department stores and everything moving online, and having gone to Basel and, sweated your ass off for 20 years, because I didn't realize it was that hot in there and people pay a lot of money to apparently sweat in that building, or they used to anyway. Do you still see value in watch shows? Because if people get the watch, we talked about this before, people get the watch, your watch on the wrist, they love it. But if we don't have as many accessible, watch opportunities to just do like watch fairs, whether they're small scale, medium, or large scale, how do we do that? Do you still see value in that?
That's a good question. And, the pandemic affected a lot of things.
Oh, yeah.
As you know. And so going to shows sort of died with that. Now, there's a resurgence, and I know that there's some shows that are coming back, and we still do a couple of shows, but not that many, because it's kind of tied to what I was saying before about getting into retailers, that at this stage we need to kind of sell quite a few to consumers direct and get on to consumers so that consumers start asking about our product, and then we can go after more retail accounts. I mean, we have a few dozen retail accounts. It's not that we don't have them, but we could use a couple hundred retail accounts. Excuse me. But so one of the things we'd like to, I didn't tell you how the Marines thing came about. Would you like to hear a little bit about that?
Sure.
I don't know. You'll probably cut and edit and figure all this out. But
Oh no, this is.
Oh, we
this
don't cut and
is-
edit the show.
We hit record once and
All
very natural.
well,
Yeah.
when we were running Luminox, the Marines came to us and said, "Would you like to do a program with us as well?" And we politely declined at that point, thinking that it would dilute our primary Navy message. But my right-hand guy for 16 years, he was actually with Luminox 19 years. He was a Marine, and once a Marine, always a Marine. And that's how the other fellow came in, because they knew each other. And I guess there was ongoing conversation since they know each other. And one day I had a call from this fellow who said, the word's on the street, you're back in Tritium Tactical Watches. I said, well, yeah, I am. And incredibly kindly, he said, if you're doing it, we want it. And he says, let me get with the office and we'll figure this out. And I'd say within a few weeks, we had a program put together. So, and we're proud of that. We're definitely like the affiliation with the Marines.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
And we'd like to, one of the things I want to make sure we do in this is to extend special offers to your audience.
Absolutely.
So a couple of the things that we can do, that every time we launch a new series, we put it on Kickstarter. And we're not doing it to fund it. Kickstarter is like crowdfunding, right? But we're not doing it to fund it. Because I've already funded it. We're doing it to cast a wider net of awareness. It seems to work because we've gotten orders from over 15 countries this way. So we ran a Kickstarter on our new automatic USMC watches, and that was sold. I think it funded in a day, but that doesn't matter. It was on there for 30 days, and then they have a new vehicle where you can keep it on. So we've kept it on, and you please share that with your audience, because it's going to be a $695 watch, and it should be $795. I told you that I short marked these, and on Kickstarter it's $435. So it's like 40% off. It's a heck of a deal if your audience would like it. And then for any of our other watches, anything that we make, I can give you an additional code, which I'd like to use snobs, since you guys are the two broke watch snobs.
Love it.
So we use snobs, and then anybody can go to the ProTek website, which is protekwatch.com. It's PROTEK watch.com. Key in at snobs at checkout, and you get a 20% discount. Gladly, happy to provide that.
No, thank you for offering that to the audience. And just to clarify for folks, that's not something that Michael and I get a commission on. That's just something we wanted to Barry was happy to offer that for listeners to the show. And we said, great, we don't want a kickback. And he says, okay.
Yeah, it's really it's me that wants to offer it to your audience, and you guys were very clear that you don't take anything on it, and that's fine. But I'd like your audience to have access to this. And we make other watches as well, and they can have the same discount on anything we make, even outside of ProTek. So I gave you one website. The other website that anybody could go to is timeconcepts.net. And there they can see all our watches, including ProTek. But they could see the official Hawaiian Lifeguard watches. They could see the Santo Vintage and the Santo Icons. And one of the icons in particular is a guy named Frank Stephenson. And he's got a very, very cool watch. This guy is a remarkable, brilliant designer. Does TED Talks, and he was director of design at Ferrari, director of design at McLaren.
Wow.
Designed the Mini, the Fiat 500, the BMW X5, Maserati MC12, and a bunch of other cars. And now he's designing a spacecraft, short takeoff and landing taxis of the future, won best design at the Consumer Electronics Show for a car seat for babies. He's just really brilliant. And so he wanted to create a watch, and we created a watch that he titled Cosmos. So it ties to his spacecraft that he's doing.
So designing all those things wasn't enough. He also wanted to make a watch.
Yeah. So there's Hawaiian Lifeguard. There's Danny's. That was Shane Dorian, I think. No, Danny Sullivan. I get him confused. We've done quite a few icons. Roland Sands. But Frank Stephenson's watch is very, very different.
What do you most So in the last few minutes of the show, what are you most excited
That's
about?
Roland Sands right there, by the way. Roland Sands is an icon from the motorcycle industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone definitely go and check out both the websites for ProTek, and then also the Time Concepts. It's timeconcepts.net, right?
Yeah, timeconcepts.net for
Perfect.
that's basically our store. But
Mhm.
but of course each of those brands has their own website as well, but I just figured I'd make it simple for you guys.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
In the last few minutes of the show, I'm curious, what are you most excited about? We talked to a lot of brand owners and a lot of watchmakers, sometimes on air and most of the times off air. And I'm always interested to hear, the business side, 1, 3, 5 year plans. What are you most excited about for the future of ProTek if you're looking of 3 years out? And I also know that sometimes some people don't look that far out. They're really just focused on this year and they're thinking month to month. But what do the next few years look like? Or have you thought about that?
I really have only thought about product, and in the area of product, as you know, we have. I told you we have the carbon U.S. Marines automatics that are coming next month.
Yep.
The month after that, we have our steel automatics coming as well. We have solid link bracelets that are coming for the steel dive
Cool.
watches, both quartz and automatic, and also for the titanium field watches. We are adding a United States Marines field collection for the holidays.
Oh,
So
fun.
I'm mostly just thinking about what product is coming. I don't know how long I'm going to do this. We'll see if we can get it going successfully, and if we do, wonderful. So I'm
I
not
have
thinking 5, 10 years. I'm just thinking the product for the next year or so.
I have faith. These are a ton of fun. I really think to emphasize the point to folks at home also is the price point is amazing. I remember when we were originally talking, and then as I started to learn more and more just about the brand, and I saw the pricing, like that comment that Barry made before, but other people making comments about quality and great use of tritium and value. It is very much true. So I would Michael and I would highly encourage everyone to check out the actual ProTek website, the Time Concepts website, if you wanted to see the rest of the offerings across all the other brands and everything like that. So that's
And the
super
Kickstarter.
super exciting. And the Kickstarter, I'm looking at it. I'm actually looking at it right now. So this is the first automatic. This is the first automatic with the carbon case, right?
Right. Yep.
Which
That's the Seiko you said? Seiko moved in?
Seiko's 24 jewel NH35. By the way,
cool.
the case is carbon composite. We got sapphire crystal with anti-reflective coating, genuine rubber strap with a steel tube molded in the strap for the spring pin to go through, an embossed stamped case back that's a screw back, a screw-in crown with multiple O-rings, and again, Japanese movement.
Very cool. Very, very cool. I mean, Barry, thanks so much for making the time to chat. I know we spoke, we had several conversations over email, and we talked a little bit before we started recording, and then you were happy to jump on air really as soon as we could. And again, thank you for extending that discount code to our audience. Again, it's just the word snobs. Is it capital S? Does that matter? Does capitalization matter?
I don't know that it matters. I don't think it does. And I, at first I thought snob, but there's two of you guys, so we got to be
There's two of
plural.
us.
Yeah, got to be plural.
I love it. Or you can just make it snob, make it singular, and make Michael and I fight for the title.
I think we should go. I think we should go plural just to keep it so people recognize it with your show.
Peaceful.
I appreciate that.
Peaceful.
I appreciate you guys having me on. It's very kind of you. And thanks for helping us spread the gospel of about what we're doing. And I know that if any of your listeners and viewers pick up one of our watches, I know they're going to love it, not just like it. Everybody's telling us they love it.
I can't wait to see them, honestly.
So. Yeah, they're on their way to Mike for some review samples. Let me do this also. If you already own a ProTek piece, which is entirely possible, let us know in the comments, either on YouTube or on a portion of this is probably going to go on the website as well. Let us know your thoughts. Like, tell everyone in the comments, how you like the watch. And then at the same time, if you go and pick one up, with the code, definitely come back here and let us know your thoughts on the timepiece as well. I mean, to Barry's point earlier, there's so much value in just hearing what people think, what actual people think when they get this timepiece on their wrist. I do have one general question left, Barry, if you have 5 minutes.
Yeah, no problem.
Do you consider yourself a watch collector? That's something I'm always curious on.
Yeah. So my folks got me into watches when I was 10.
Right.
And they bought me my first Timex. And
Cool.
then we went on a cruise when I was 13, and they bought me a Universal Genève chronograph.
Wow.
I think it was like $35. It was, it's kind of duty free on the cruise, so maybe it was $50 normally. I don't know.
Right. Not bad.
I love
Right.
that watch. That really got me into watches. And then I really didn't have another watch again until I got into the work world. And when I bought a Seiko. And then over time, now I had moved into the watch category. So I had all these samples, right? So, and I'll get to where I'm going here on this collection thing, what you're asking about. So, but I thought to myself, I'm in the watch business. I should have a very nice watch for myself. So about 15 years ago, I bought an Omega Seamaster. And honestly, I think I've worn it maybe 15 times, and that's it. and the reason is, let's say I get dressed, put something on, go out, start talking to somebody. What do you do? I'm in the watch business. Oh, is that your watch? I have to be wearing my own watch. I can't wear an Omega or something else. And so that's precluded me from really collecting. Although I have a watch box out of koa wood that my wife's cousin made for me in Hawaii, and it's got multiple trays, and it's probably got 30 or 40 watches in there, but not the type you'd think about when you talk about collecting. They're just watches I've had over the years.
That's cool. That's actually that's a very interesting perspective. It makes a ton of sense. If you meet people and you say, oh, I make watches, the first thing they're going to assume is you're wearing your own watch.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm so glad you asked that. That was something I was wondering about as well. But that is kind of a struggle. You have something nice that you probably want to wear, but on the business side, you probably should be repping your own stuff.
Just rep your own stuff. I love it.
Although I wouldn't mind, because you go through this life once, I wouldn't mind picking up a Rolex Daytona if I could get access to one. But what's happened recently with that is ridiculous with the prices and so on. So
that's a whole other episode.
Exactly.
That's a whole other podcast topic. Well, let's do this, Barry. Thank you so much again for jumping on the show. Mike, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do our normal sign off, and then we'll all say bye, and then Barry, what Mike will do is Mike will just end the recording. You don't need to close your window, and then we can all say goodbye, like not on the episode and everything like that.
Gotcha.
Mike, does that work for you?
That works. Thanks for listening, guys. My name is Mike.
And this is Kaz. You have been listening to Two Broke Watch Snobs. Later.